Um, this is a special coronavirus edition of the Abdullah Samir Show. And I'm joined by Faye Rahman. Faye, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It came really out of the blue.
Yeah, it's been overdue. I've seen you on Twitter for a long time and just never got a chance to do this. And I'm doing a lot more live streams now. Finally got back into it. I had like a hiatus from like November until almost February, not because of the coronavirus, but just because I feel like, when you do the live streams, people don't realize it kind of takes a lot out of you because you have to be engaged, you have to pay attention, you have to like know what to say. It's tough, right? It's not like making a prepared video where you can edit out the mistakes. It's a
Yeah,
whole different ball game, going live in front of hundreds of people.
because I kind of am I allowed to swear on your channel?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so because I make an ass of myself a lot online, I don't really care too much about live streaming, but I
Yeah.
do find that a lot of people, because they're live and they can't like take back something that they've already said, it does make a lot of people anxious, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
That
exactly. And in my case, I have kids, so I have to always schedule it in a way that like everyone's sleeping or distracted with something else. So there's some logistical challenges, but glad to have you. So um, I watched your video on how you left Islam and all that, and
Mhm.
so you're Bangladeshi background,
Yeah.
and you come from a conservative family as well.
Yeah, they weren't originally conservative. They were pretty like namesake Muslim when I was a very young child, but my father became conservative when I was around 11 because he joined Tabligh. And then
Oh.
I was put into an Islamic school. And then I slowly became more radicalized. And then I fell out of Islam around 2021. I left in 2017.
Okay, so it's been about 3 years then.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so when you were Muslim, tell us about your life going. Okay, so one thing I thought was very interesting that you posted was about hijab. So we'll get into hijab, but tell
Mhm.
us about you growing up as a Muslim in this family.
When I was up as a Muslim, so I grew up in the UK. I was born in Bangladesh, but I'm definitely very multicultural. Was raised with all kinds of people, and I had a lot of stages with Islam because when I was a really young girl, I didn't really I didn't really identify that strongly with Islam. I went to madrasa. My mum taught me how to read the Quran. I went to several different madrasas. My grandfather on my father's side was not very religious, but my mother was quite devout to a certain degree because her grandfather was an imam in Bangladesh. So her mother was my maternal grandmother is quite religious. So my mother's always been sort of traditional in that sense. And I think the tweet that you picked up was that I was put in a hijab when I was 5 years old. And I think that was my mother's way of kind of retaining the identity. She was always kind of scared that I would lose my Bangla-ness, like I would lose my Bengali heritage. And she kind of put that on me as like, oh, this is what we wear because we're Bengali. She used to take me to Bangla classes. She taught me how to cook from a really young age when I was like 11 or 12. I was not allowed to speak English at home. I
Mhm.
was, always wear cultural clothing. So my mum very much came from a more identity sort of cultural place. But as I grew up, my dad's always had some in a little off about him. He's always had some kind of psychological issue. And he's never really confronted it, which is really why I stuck around with my dad for so long. But I was my dad's closest friend, and he was my closest friend. It's really sad, honestly. But when I was around 11, we had to leave my grandma's house. My dad was really, really upset about it for whatever reason. And I think to fill the hole of that like transition, he joined Tabligh. So Tabligh Jamaat or Deobandi is like a sect of Islam. They're quite conservative. Um, And he joined them. He started going to markazes and different kinds of like gatherings and things like that. And he got us really, really into it. And initially, I was always a daddy's girl. It was always, from a really young age, I was always a daddy's girl. Anytime my dad was at home, because he used to be a bus driver, he used to work in restaurants. Man was working a lot of jobs. I was always a daddy's girl. So I was always like, yes, you know what? I'm going to go to the mosque with my dad. I'm going to do whatever he says. I'm going to make him proud. And then when I was 11, I was moving into secondary school, or like middle school in America. And I was really, really excited to go to a school in my area that did horse riding. I was very, very excited about that. But my dad pulled me aside and he was like, hey, so I found this Islamic school, and I'm not going to lie, they haven't got horse riding, but it's an Islamic school. Like, they'll take care of you and they'll raise you properly. And I was sad about it. But I said, well, my dad's going to choose what's best for me, so I'm going to go along with it. And this school, it was more like a house. We had 12 students in a year group. I was one of them. And typically in a British school, a year group has maybe 300 to 400 kids. So it was a very, very tiny school. It was essentially in a house. And that's where I went. And this was a school that was run by a local mosque. It was run by Hendon Mosque. And they were part of Tabligh as well. But I think when I was like 13 or 14, there were a lot of... You okay?
Yeah. So if I can just jump in there for a second.
Sure.
You made some interesting points. Just wanted to kind of address them. You know, the one thing I found interesting, and in what you said, you said that your mom wanted to, retain the Bangla identity, so she put you in hijab. It's interesting how hijab has become part of the identity of Bangladeshis, by Muslim Bangladeshis, but like it's not part of it wasn't, let's say, it wasn't part of Bangladeshi culture, or it's something that Islam has put into Bangladeshi culture. And isn't that, like, don't you find that interesting how it actually came from an Arabic religion, and now it's actually considered same within in the West. Many Canadian Muslim women, American women, they consider hijab to be part of the cultural fabric. It's like a subculture now, and it's no longer just looked at as this sort of religious scarf,
Yeah, I've been saying for quite a long time, I think I may have brought it up when I did the Secular Jihadist podcast, actually, that I no longer think that the hijab in the West is used as an Islamic symbol. I think it's very much used as an identity symbol, which is why it's very hard to kind of separate, like, arguing against the religious aspect of it, because it's become so close to a cultural symbol when it's never been a cultural symbol. It's always been a religious garment that restricts women. And it's also one of the reasons why I don't want to ban it anywhere, because I think that if a woman really wants to wear it, it's the same as me like putting on a cap. It's just a piece of clothing at the end of the day.
Mashallah,
And I
sister
also
is wearing hijab today for the interview. Mashallah, you're wearing a hijab today for the interview.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I love hats. I never thought I would, because I spent so much of my life covering my head. But I love them. But so something else is that if you do end up banning something like the hijab or even the niqab, what's going to happen is those Muslims who are more extreme and have put their daughters in hijabs and niqabs, those people never see the light of day. And I know for a fact that that would have happened to me. So it would just, so it just would not be viable, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you on that. Even more strongly, to say it even more strongly, I mean, the challenge with the hijab is when it comes to, like, when it's forced upon people. But practically speaking, I agree with you. I was going to say even more strongly, so if you have an adult that wants to practice any part of the religion, whether it's praying, fasting, or wearing hijab, or whatever, whether they're Christian or Jewish or whatever religion they are, if it's a private practice of religion, I have no problem with it. And that's part of what I stand for as a secularist. I believe that everyone has a right to freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, freedom of, whatever sexuality you are. I mean, that is you. That's what you want to do. If you want to do cosplay, if you want to dress up, in a costume like Pokemon or whatever, right? Like, I don't care. It doesn't why should it bother me? Of course, with the niqab, it's it's trickier, I think, because there's some identity issues, and I
Yeah.
feel like, practically speaking, the niqab kind of creates a barrier in society, and it makes the problem of integration much worse. You guys might have seen that more in Canada. We it's a very small minority of people that wear niqab, and Canadian Muslims are very well integrated. We don't have like ghettos, or we don't have little Muslims are not they don't isolate themselves here like they do in Europe. I mean, that's what I've heard anyways. And
And certainly not like how they do that in the UK.
yeah, and they do that in UK then.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
There's very well. There does seem to be this fear of being influenced by non-Muslims. Like I certainly experienced that throughout growing up. Like I grew up in an area that was very multicultural. We had a lot of brown people, we had a lot of Somalis, we had a lot of Polish people, we had a lot of, English white people. And my mom always had this fear, and even my dad always had this fear of being overly influenced. I was going to an Islamic school. I don't know what they were so afraid of. Like I couldn't go to the library, for example.
Oh, whoa! You couldn't go to the library?
No, I wasn't allowed. I got severely yelled at one time because I went to the library just to pick up some manga, like nothing else.
That is shocking to me because, okay, what my experience is so, oh my God, my experience is so different from yours because I come from a liberal Muslim family. And on top of that, like when I converted to Islam, damn. So, okay, well, continue then. Tell us. So your dad, let's go back to your story. Yeah.
I did want to briefly touch on something else that you said, but
Yep,
I've forgotten. Maybe I should have brought a pen and papers. I'm sure it'll come up again.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I went to this Islamic school when I was 11.
And here's the thing: so your dad was slowly becoming more religious. When you said he went to Markaz, I'm not familiar with that. Is that like a tabligh thing? Is that like a lecture?
It's a tabligh. It's essentially just like a gathering.
Ah, okay.
Right, but they call it a markaz.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my dad was slowly becoming more religious. He would have like all these intellectual conversations with people. I take after my dad a lot in the sense that we both really like talking, and not always good things. But when I went to this school, I had an Islamic studies teacher, and I used to argue with her a lot, but I was also her best student because I took what she said and I kind of broke it down. It made for very interesting classes and very interesting conversations. There was one time when I was about 16 that she got so pissed off with me. She was like, "Go sit in the corner and face the wall. I do not want to talk to you anymore." We had this love-hate relationship because I would always tick her off by asking her like these really tricky questions, but I was also really, really invested in understanding what Islam was. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But she used to cover her face, and I used to see her doing that. And around, so I think this was in 2010 and 2011, we had a politician in the UK who was trying to get the niqab banned, and I decided in protest that I would put it on as an 11-year-old in the UK. So I started wearing the niqab. My mum was very against it. She was like, "You're going to get attacked. You're going to get brutalized. Like, people aren't going to accept you." I just want to say on the record, I've never been harassed for wearing a niqab. I honestly don't know where that stigma comes from. The only people that
by non-Muslims, you mean?
By non-Muslims, yeah. The only people that I've been like quote unquote harassed by is by my friends. They used to call me ninja and dementor all the time, and it was hilarious.
When my wife wore niqab for some period of time in Canada, this was very long ago, and wasn't for a very long time. She was actually harassed, and I feel like this was many, many years ago, and obviously Canada is different than we do have the image of being more tolerant and all that stuff, but it unfortunately this did happen, that when she was driving, she had someone throw things at the car. So it brings out, I feel like it brings out the worst of people.
It can, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like it can bring out the worst of people because they have this visceral reaction to this. They don't necessarily realize who's under the they're not like here to like bring Sharia law or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
I've certainly had really interesting conversations while I was wearing niqab, because I used to ride the bus to school and stuff like that. I'm certainly with old ladies where they would just be like, "Are you okay? Are they treating you right?"
Yeah.
and
Oh,
things
that's
like
awesome. Yeah. And it's
it's
it's awesome to hear that your Muslim mom, I mean, this is so important to point out.
yeah,
The Muslim mom was against it.
yeah.
I mean, this is like this needs to be highlighted because it just shows you there's diversity even in the Muslim community. Like not everybody agrees with the niqab. And
Mm,
even my like when I was Muslim, I mean, I heard a lot of debate about niqab, and unfortunately there's a movement here in Canada and in the Toronto area specifically, but all over Canada, and it comes from Pakistan, and it's Farhat Hashmi, this religious Salafi woman who wears
mm,
niqab, and she set up a school here, and everybody that go, all the Muslim women that go to that school, it's a women's school mainly, and it's a mosque. They all wear
mm,
niqab. They all end up wearing niqab. They go into the school and they come out as niqabis because the way like she's teaching them to wear
yeah.
niqab. And I think it's just unfortunate because there's no net gain from wearing niqab. Like already you're wearing hijab, you're pretty modest. You can
I
dress in
mean,
hijab. Like, what's the
from
point of going that far? It's just so redundant,
for me as a Muslim woman, I mean, I'll kind of get into it later, but after hearing so many different preachers say the how venerated women who wear niqab are, and how much more pious those women are, I just wanted to do it for like reward reasons, like
Mhm.
points, like
Yeah,
brownie points reasons.
yeah.
I wanted to be more practicing and more religious, but I was 11 when I put it on. I'd been sold by my Islamic studies teacher,
Oh wow.
and I was the first person in my family. At that point, a lot of my relatives weren't even wearing hijab.
Yeah.
I was the first person to cover my face. My grandma was completely against it. A couple of my uncles were completely against it, but my dad was very proud. He was like, "No, she's gonna wear it. Like she's going on the right path. She's done good work here."
Yeah.
Um,
So
but
one more thing I wanted to highlight
yeah,
before we get away from this topic of your dad and Islamic school. Again, this is something that makes me very sad, and I've seen it over and over again. Parents or people in general, not just parents, but Muslims
mhm,
will like not like they will sacrifice this life for the next life. So when you were going to go to a school that had like horse riding and all of these things, that was like like probably public school and well funded and taking he took you out of that and he put you into this little house. Okay, let's call it a house that.
it was one of the worst things that ever happened to me.
Yeah, and they're doing this with your best interest at heart, supposedly,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that's
pure
what they think.
intentions.
And I
Can't
did this
fault.
too. Like I
Yeah,
also did this. I also put my kids into Islamic school. I paid, I don't know how much money, probably 10, $20,000 in fees
yeah,
over the years to put my kids in second-rate schools, Islamic schools. And I had doubts about it too. Like it's not like I was a thinking person. I wasn't just like, okay, I got to do this. But like, I was always hearing from the imams, and the imams were saying, I remember one imam, Yusuf Estes, he was like, it's better to put your kids in a toilet than to put them in public school. Like
yeah.
that's the strong language he used.
I
And
remember
so
that.
because of
Yeah.
that, I was like, I got to put my kids in Islamic school. And it was tough because I was the only one earning. I didn't make a ton of money.
Mhm.
But like I did it, and I don't know if I think the kids were worse off. I think they would have been better off in public school.
I
That's just
think
my opinion.
I've made a video on it on my channel. But I think one of the most interesting things about growing up in an Islamic school and being, thrown into that world is that you have this massive divide between the type of people that are sent there. You have so you have girls who are really come from really really religious families, like we had the daughters of other imams and things like that, and then you have, for lack of a better term, hopeless cases, like Muslims who have daughters that they feel like are just off the rail and they want to fix them, so they send them to Islamic school, and it made for wonderful conversation, but it was an awful environment to grow up in.
Yeah. Oh, that's another good point you made with Islamic schools is that you only have, for the most part, Arabs, Pakistanis, Bengalis, and sometimes you'll have like the token like
Convert,
white
yeah.
white converts kid that's there. And you may have some Bosnians or Turkish people and stuff like that, but it's like you'd rarely find a Chinese person in an Islamic school. You'd
No
rarely
Chinese
find,
people. I
so
mean,
the diversity is not there, right?
the racism in that school was a little crazy. But there was at one point I asked my head teacher, because we all used to like have lunch in one room. And I decided to be cheeky there. I don't know why. I'm always looking for trouble. And I asked her, if a non-Muslim applied to the school, would you let him come in? Like if they paid all the fees and, would you let him come in? And she was like, why would a non-Muslim come to the school? And I was like, I don't know, but what if they just want to cut? And she was like, don't ask dumb questions. Like,
That's funny. Why would a non-Muslim come to the school? I mean,
yeah,
if they were doing it well, you would think they would want to. I know
exactly.
there's an Islamic school here that is actually doing really well, and they take the academics very seriously. They have an Islamic like portion to it as well, but the averages on the exams, the math and the provincial testing that we do here, it's above the average of the public schools here. So they're actually doing really well, and it's one of the more expensive Islamic schools. So
Yeah, we have one like that here as well, run by
yeah,
Yusuf Islam.
yeah, exactly. So there's definitely professional ones that have come out of this, and the Muslim population is big enough now that they can actually afford it. It kind of creates a two-tier system in a way, because you have the like, crappy Islamic schools, like the ones I put my kids in.
You get one or the other. Yeah.
And then you get these like good ones, but in either case, you don't have diversity of thought.
No.
You all the teachers are Muslim. You have this, it's indoctrination, childhood indoctrination too, right? Like you're teaching. I mean, there's no way around it, because I think parents have the right to teach the kids what they believe. I mean, that's part of parenting. You can't take that away from a parent.
Also, there's no real way of policing that without going full fascist or
yeah. So continue. So you were saying, you were in this school, and then.
So I was in the school, and I think at heart I've always kind of been like a strange person. I've always been a weirdo. So I didn't really get along with any of the girls. I was never really interested in what they were interested in. Like I'm a very nerdy, kind of tomboy kind of person. We didn't really have physical education or PE, but I was kind of the only person that ever wanted to kick a football about. So I'd be the only one running around the car park.
They didn't have
the ball by myself.
There was no physical education?
No, we had like a little garden. We didn't even have a playground.
Damn.
We had like a concrete garden that had rats in it, so sometimes we weren't even allowed to go in there. But I would be one of the only people that would want to get air and run around and chuck a ball, because I grew up around, honestly, a lot of men. Like I grew up in my grandma's house. I grew up with 4 of my uncles and 2 of my male cousins. So this like Islam and me studying it kind of became that hole to fill that gap, because I thought, this is a bottomless pit. Let me invest in this. And what ended up happening was I found a lot of inconsistencies, and I would bother my teacher a lot with them, because we were taught, so we're Bengali, so we were taught a lot from the Hanafi madhab, although I also learned about Shafi'i and Maliki fiqh as well. And in this school, I was also learning Arabic. So I thought, well, I might as well get it from the horse's mouth. And I would listen to Saudi preachers talk all the time. So I would listen to like their Friday khutbahs and things like that.
In English, like translated?
No, in Arabic.
Oh, so you knew Arabic?
There was a website, I can't remember what it is, but there was a website that used to do a live stream. And I used to listen to him, and if I like missed something, it was how I learned. It's probably the only reason why I passed Arabic. Is because I would listen to them, and if I felt like I missed something, I would re-watch it with the translation. So I would do like these little deep dives, because there really wasn't anything else going on in my life. Didn't have a boyfriend, had a ton of siblings. My mom, we didn't really have a lot in common, so we didn't spend a lot of time together. Like most of our time was mainly taking the piss out of each other. That was our whole relationship.
Yeah. You said you didn't have a boyfriend. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, but would your parents have allowed you to have a boyfriend anyways?
No, of course not. But I'm just saying, like, I didn't have anything else to occupy my time with, so I used to spend a lot of time just researching and getting on fights through Yahoo Answers. I would ask a question and someone would just be rude.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started finding a lot of these inconsistencies, and I would talk to my teacher about them, and she would be like, "Oh, don't question stuff like that. Like, just try and follow the madhab as best as you can." And I was like, "Okay, so why do Shafi'is? Why is it that blood breaks their wudu, but it doesn't break ours? Like, I'm confused. It's one or the other, right?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Stop looking so much into it. It's not that difficult." And I was like, "But it doesn't make any sense." And then I would tell my dad, and then he would get in fights in the mosque with it. And then it like took me into the more Salafi route, because I had a friend in Islamic school that was
Yeah.
the daughter of the Imam at Wembley Mosque. I loved her. She was one of my best friends.
Yeah.
I still think we would be friends now, even if she was still the same, because
Yeah.
she was jokes. She was the funniest person alive.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, you should come to our halakas at Wembley Mosque." And I never did, but she used to like sit me down. We used to go through like all these Salafi lectures. I fell in love with Anwar al-Awlaki. He was my
Oh, wow.
favorite preacher. He's a listed terrorist, but he was my favorite preacher. I used to listen to.
We started loving Anwar al-Awlaki in our house too. He didn't start off as a terrorist. He was more like Lives of the Prophets, right? And then
that's what I loved about him.
Yeah, and he became political at some point. At some point, he started to, and Hassan Radwan, a great spiritual father of ex-Muslims, talked about this. He said that when one thing he finds interesting about Islam is when you're Muslim, you're expected as a package to accept all of these like conflicts in the world, your conflicts, like the Syria issue, the Kashmir issue, Palestine.
I honestly think that I would not be as like reformatory, like I wouldn't be a revolutionary, if we can call me that, if it wasn't for my upbringing in Islam.
Yeah.
Because Islam puts you in a headspace where you're constantly a revolutionary.
Yeah.
Like you always have to fight somebody.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with Anwar al-Awlaki, and I can't, like, I don't even know how I got there. I started listening to his Lives of the Prophet. I started listening to his seerahs. I used to listen to him so much, like the same thing over and over again. I used to fall asleep to his voice, and he had such a passionate way of talking about things like that, which is why I kind of just fell in love with that whole thing. And if you listen to Anwar al-Awlaki, have you heard his talk, The Battle of the Hearts and Minds?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I listened to that a million times. I've listened to that a million times. It's all about fighting the West. It's all about jihad. I was sold. I was sold on it. I was like, yes, this is what Islam is about. And I like started introducing this guy to my dad because of my friend. And he was like, oh, this guy knows his shit. And we just started listening to Saudi sheikhs. Peace TV rolled around that time as well. So Zakir Naik started his channel. We started watching a lot of that. My dad ended up blocking off all the other channels on the TV.
Oh no.
So it was just Islam channel and it was Peace TV. I started listening to a lot of the Peace TV people. So Zakir Naik, Yusuf Estes was one of them. Bilal Phillips, and a bunch of Yasir Qadi as well, back when he wasn't how he is now.
Yeah. It's interesting that this appeal to Salafism as this sort of true Islamic pure, because you feel that, and I had the same sort of pull as well, right? Like I was pulled into it, and you almost feel like it's a better version of Islam, don't you?
I still have to say it's a better version of Islam. It's the purest version of Islam.
Well, I hold the opinion that
I've seen you disagree with that.
Yeah, I used to think that, especially as an ex-Salafi. I was like, yeah, Salafism is the best version of Islam. But now my perspective
is a meme at this point.
But yeah, I don't want to go too much into that. But my perspective is basically that there is no true or best version of Islam. If you want to say best in terms of for the world, I would say like Ismailism is far better. Ahmadis are way more like tolerant, loving. And there's no jihad in the Ahmadi sect, for example. Jihad's gone, so those would be better for the world. But whether the more in line with what Muhammad taught, I would argue. I wouldn't argue that they're not, because I'd say it's all a man-made process, anyways. And whichever way you look at it, you're always going to have to make an interpretive calculation, right? And I'm going to be on secular jihadists too. I don't want to say debate this topic, but like Armin Nawawi is very strongly.
Armin, yeah, Armin's a little bit anal about it.
Yeah.
But in terms of Salafism, I mean, I looked into other sects. I used to get into a lot of, we had a couple of Shias at our school, so we used to have a lot of like debates. Someone's asked me if I'm married now. What do you think? I'm not sure that anyone's ready for this. But we used to have a lot of like arguments back and forth and debates about between like Shiism and Sunni Islam, and this was well before like I fell into this Salafi hole. But the reason why I kind of fell into it is because Salafism sort of stuck to the scriptures more, and that's
Exactly.
what I put value on.
Yeah.
Was, you know, Quran and Sunnah, Quran
And,
and Sunnah,
yeah.
Quran and Sunnah.
And
And
like you said,
especially when I learned about, you know, 73 sects and that
yeah.
hadith, and then about bid'ah and all of that, like all of it just went, okay, well, this is the only thing that I can follow,
Yeah.
because all of the other ones are just, they're just mugged off the original one.
Yeah.
So I fell into it, and something that I kind of wanted to address was, so you have preachers now like Muhammad Hijab, Ali Dawah, who were kind of around when I was a young person, but I never liked them, and I never understood why I didn't like them until I left. It's because I idolized people like Anwar al-Awlaki, who had this like manner of speaking that was like passionate, and they felt like they really meant what they said, and they were invested in what they said. And when it comes to them, it just feels like an act, and
Yeah.
it feels very fake and very standoffish. And something else that I've kind of carried out of Islam was that something that I was taught from the beginning was that if you don't know something, you admit that you don't know. You don't make shit
Mhm.
up. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And something that I very frequently do not see these preachers do is admit when they're wrong. I always, it's always been instilled in me from the very beginning. If you are wrong, just fess up to it. Do not make stuff up, because you will be punished for that. You will be changing the religion of Allah, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely was. I started off with loving Sufis. I was into Hamza Yusuf, and this guy, every single lecture of his, he cries.
Mm,
He definitely has this appeal, this sort of. I'm gonna call it. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna call it pseudo intellectual appeal. I don't think it's
mm.
now that I've left Islam and I watch his videos. Sometimes I laugh at how dumb it is what he's
Oh
saying.
my gosh.
But when you're Muslim and you hear him quoting all of these like Greek, writers, and because he studied liberal arts, right? So he has
Mm.
a degree in arts. He knows all of the great works like Homer and whatever. And when he quotes them, he sounds like he's making a really good point. But now when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, well,
Yeah,
this is not a
I
good
mean,
point. Like, you know what I mean?
hindsight's 2020. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm sure if I went back to Aulaki's, a lot of them have been removed because he was a terrorist.
yeah,
But if I went back to Aulaki's work now, I'm sure I could poke holes in it. But as you know, as a child who doesn't know anything but Islam, it makes sense. Like
yeah,
it follows.
yeah.
And I studied. So my dad became sold on Salafism. I got sold on it way earlier than him. And we started, vibing on that same kind of wavelength, um, talking about different things in Islam. And my dad and myself were very, very vocal. Like we used to talk about marriage, we used to talk about rules with like sex and stuff like that. We were very, very open and free with each other. And all of my other family members used to find it really bizarre that we were so close as friends. Because I would tell him like, "Oh my God, this girl at my school, she did this," and he'd be like, "No." Like it was, we used to have like our little mothers meeting at home. Um, it was, our relationship was something else. But it came to a point where I was like reading a lot of, so my focus, because I couldn't go off to jihad, like it was an ideal thing. Like I romanticized it, but I'm a woman, so I can't do it. I invested a lot of time in learning about like the 6 articles of faith. I started learning about Allah, his books, his angels, his messengers, the last day, and Qadar. And so I started learning like one by one. There were like different books. I've forgotten who they're by, but there were different books that covered each of these topics. And they would have like, it was like a school book. They had like little activities that you could fill out and things like that. So it was really, really aimed towards young people, maybe not children, but young people. So I was sitting there, I would read them and I would like go through them. And the one that really, really got to me was probably learning about the Day of Judgment, hellfire, and heaven, and also learning about Qadar, because I never fully understood it. It was always in the back of my brain that I was kind of like, wait, so he knew everything that was gonna happen, but he's gonna burn us anyway. Like, it didn't make sense to
Yeah.
me that you would actively do that. You would have an active part in creating things that you know were gonna fail. That was in their nature, and they were gonna do that. And then you would burn, like, even the creation of Iblis. Like, at that point, I was just like going through a loop. I asked my dad about it, and he started going off on one about how all the sects that you have in Islam broke on this issue. Stop questioning this issue.
Yeah.
There was this show on Islam channel called Islamica, which I've made a parody of on my channel. There was this show that I used to ring up and I used to ask the sheikh, like, I have this question, and every day they would have a different sheikh, and I would ask different ones. Every single day I would ring up. My dad was sick of it. He was like, you're burning out the phone bill. I was like, no, but I need this answer. If I don't have this answer, then I can't complete, first of all, my textbook, and also like my faith. I want to
Yeah.
believe in this, but I don't understand it. And I would
Yeah.
ask each and every one. I asked the Sufi one. I asked the really strict one. I asked the lenient one with no beard. I asked the Michael Jackson one. Like, I asked all of them, and they all had a different answer. And then I saw this one guy in a Zakir Naik lecture ask the very same question. He was an atheist, and
Yeah.
Zakir Naik just completely just told him off. He was like,
Yeah.
you don't understand anything, and he was angry about it.
Was
Right?
this the problem of evil, or like why Shaitan
No,
was
I think I
created?
made a reaction to a man's name is Haris, I think. The guy who
Oh, I
asked.
did that one. I did responded to that one too.
Yeah.
A lot of people keep asking, "What's your channel? What's your channel?"
It's Faye the
Faye,
Most Gracious. It's on the screen.
Faye's channel is linked in the description, and so is
Yeah.
her Twitter. So please do check it out, and let's get her subscriber count up.
I would like to just warn anyone who wants to subscribe to my channel. It's not for the light of heart.
Yeah.
And if you do start being bossy with me, I will have a go at you. Everyone's allowed on my channel. I openly say that you are allowed to hate me on my channel. You can leave whatever comments you want. And I feel like we've had this conversation on Twitter as well. But you will get in trouble with me if you start taking shots.
I just want to take one question before we get back to your story.
Sure.
Can you see the comment right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel that preachers are unintentionally deceiving its adherents? I think there are some, but most of them that I've spoken to, like I've spoken to quite a few preachers, in person, online, just to ask them questions and annoy them. And I feel like a lot of the ones that are quite young, I get this sense that they're insecure, and they're kind of filling that void and trying to cover that problem with, oh, Islam is the thing that I'm going to follow instead of like asking myself the difficult questions and sorting out what's actually the problem. Because for example, I've done a video on my channel where me and Ali Dawah spoke last year, and I did a reaction video to that video that he posted on his channel, and it became really, really clear to me that he's really insecure. And he said something, you can go and watch it, I'm not going to explain the whole situation, but he said something to me that really like screamed it at me. And for a lot of these preachers, it is really a cry for help. It really is. I mean, you were a preacher. Can you relate to that at all? Abdullah?
Oh, that's a little bit of a misunderstanding there. Oh, by the way, I just realized I did not link the YouTube by mistake. I'll add it. Sorry about that.
No.
I know I wasn't a preacher. A lot of people
Okay.
make this mistake, because I think what happens is people jumped on the fact that I said I was doing dawah or something, and then they thought I meant like I was what I was I was involved in a volunteer sense, using my
Oh,
technical
you were doing
abilities
tabligh?
yeah, to do dawah in a way that I could. So I was helping Yusuf Estes, I was helping Eddie from the Dean Show, and of course
Oh, I used to watch that show.
and from time to time I used to do Jummah khutbahs at like some small mosques even. But I wasn't like an Islamic scholar. I wasn't a preacher. I always say that I was just what I was.
Preaching.
I was a not even, I wouldn't even call it preaching. I was a
Dedicated.
sincere believing Muslim. That's what I was. I was someone that truly believed in Islam with all my heart, and I wanted to live for Allah and to, propagate His religion and save people from hell. Because the way I saw it was, Allah is this person, this entity that will harm you if you don't follow him. And you know that might lead into the other kind of thing we were discussing earlier. But yeah, so basically I wasn't a preacher. I was just like I was a committed Muslim, that's all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would love to call myself a preacher because I deeply, deeply regret how much time I spent like doing tabligh
Mm-hmm.
and like giving dawah. Because I feel like I used to be involved in a lot of online communities back in when I was like 14, 15. I actually have a blog that you'll feel free to screen share if you want. It's called hearislam.wordpress.com. It was a blog I started when I was like 14. And a lot of people converted because of my preaching efforts, and I feel really awful about it now because
Oh, wow.
it there's always been this thing about me that I'm very good with my words, and I think people don't. I don't know. It's dangerous.
Is it hold on one second. Is this the one?
Yes, that's the one.
Wow. Jeez. That's a
Please,
scary
please,
looking blog there.
F's in the chat for me while I hide my face in shame.
Yeah, it's a lot of Avlaki videos, eh?
Yeah, I
No,
love that
I kind
lucky.
of want to get into that a little bit more, but do you want to answer this question? I think it's for you.
Oh, yeah, I've seen a lot of people ask me about Berserk. Berserk is my favorite thing in the whole world.
What is that?
Um,
I have no idea what that is.
so it's a manga.
Oh, anime.
Well, yeah, the anime isn't that good, but it's a manga. And
Oh, okay.
someone actually bought this for me.
Okay.
They bought me all of the 4 volumes. But yeah, it's my favorite thing in the world. Who would Mozgus be? I don't. Probably Tariq Jamil, the shouty one.
That's a good segue into your artwork. Tell us about your artwork that you do.
So I haven't done artwork in a little while, but I have always been a creative. It's something that I've
Haram.
been.
You make this, you will ask to be put a soul into it on Day of Judgment. And
Yeah.
not be,
So this is what scared me, right?
yeah.
I've always been into cartoons. My mom used to tell me off for watching cartoons all the time. She was like, "All you do is watch cartoons. Why don't you watch some Indian movies or something? Like,
Why
what is
don't you
this?"
watch some Indian movies?
Yeah, she was like, what is, you're not a kid anymore. And
That
I was like,
doesn't
oh,
even
I
make
like
sense.
them. My mom was jokes. Um, but she used to like yell at me. She's like, you should be watching like these big people things. Or why are you still watching cartoons? But I always used to love cartoons. I had an obsession with cartoons. And when I was a little kid, I used to doodle and draw a lot. I had a cousin, we used to draw together, and she was always so much better than me. But when I went to this Islamic school, it broke my heart when my teacher told me that she saw me doodling. She came up behind me and she was like, Allah's going to make you put a soul in that. And I was like, no, he's not. Yeah. And she was like, no, look, I'll show you the hadith. And she
Yeah.
showed me it. And I was like, so I can't draw anymore? And she was like, no, you can't. You can't draw animals and you can't draw people. Allah's going to punish you for that. So I stopped doing that
And you
for a
know,
long
it's so
time.
unfortunate because even my brother, who's also Salafi Muslim, was doing artwork as well, and he also gave it up because it's the same reason.
Mm-hmm. And so there was a subject in school, we called it textiles. It was part of design and technology, and I was really good at it because at home my mom taught me to like sew my own clothes and things like that. We were a very like grassroots kind of family. We also used to slaughter our own chickens.
Oh, wow.
So my mom had taught me how to sew, so I was really good at it. And my DT teacher, who wasn't that practicing, she was like, why don't you make like a mood board, like draw some sketches of clothes? And I was like, I can't do that because my Islamic studies teacher told me that Allah's going to punish me for doing that. I can't do that. And she was like, no, she's just trying to scare you. But why would Allah punish you for that? And I was like, go talk to her. I can't do it. And then they had an argument.
Oh, wow.
They had a blowout. It was like the drama of the whole year. They had a massive argument. And then eventually my Islamic studies teacher said, okay, to pass your GCSE, what you can do is draw the clothes, but with no face, no hands, no body. You can only draw the clothes.
So
But
silly.
I have to say, for being just like a bunch of floating clothes, my DT art sketchbook was the one that hit top of the charts in my class. Everyone used to get me to do their homework. I used to make a lot of money because they would pay me to do their homework because no one else could draw.
Yeah.
So my artwork is, I'm not the most on top of it because I'm not good at doing commissions. I don't really like following rules. Like when someone tells me I want specifically this, I
Yeah.
can't do that. You know what? Zara's done that a lot of times, and I've been angry at her for a lot of times because of that.
So
But whenever it like comes into my brain that I need to draw something, I'll just do it, and I'm always happy with what comes out of it.
Yeah, so definitely do check out her Instagram if you're interested in artwork and stuff like that. So you know what comes across to me is you had a
Mm-hmm.
very close family, and it sounds like I'm surprised because I know what happened. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I watched your video, so but I'm surprised how did it end up falling apart, all of it? Like what happened?
So I think it was a lot of tragedies, one after the other, because the kind of family we had, like I grew up in a big house. I grew up with all of my family members around me. I grew up with all of my uncles, all of my cousins, all of my aunts. My cousins, actually, whenever I say my cousins, my people are like, oh, why would you care? My cousins were like siblings to me. I have a total of maybe over 100 siblings because
Hmm.
I have so many cousins.
Yeah.
Um, and I grew up around all of them, and I was very, very tight knit with them. But there was a series of tragedies in my life that kind of broke me away from them, and also I feel like made them feel like, oh, she's not important anymore, kind of thing. So the first kind of tragedy was that my mom got really ill. She had cancer for a while, but she wasn't diagnosed until she was in like the fourth stage. So at that point, it was terminal. And she was diagnosed in June of 2013, and she passed away in December. So she got really, really ill. She was in and out of hospital. I have 5 younger siblings. I'm the oldest in my family. I'm also the oldest granddaughter on my father's side. So there was a lot of responsibility there. I was still in school. I was finishing my A levels. So I was only going into school to do my exams because I was busy looking after, and my school was aware and they were all for it. They were like, yeah, do your bit for your mum and all of that.
Hmm.
Um, and I was looking after my siblings. I was taking care of my dad, was taking care of my mum. Like me and my mum, we never had a really close relationship, but she was really, really scared for me because she knew what my dad was like. And I had seen it as well, but I used to make a lot of excuses for him because he was my dad, and he was also my best friend, sadly. Um, so yeah, she was really, really scared for me, and she was actually, there was one time where she had like one of her friends sitting around her bed. She was like really ill. She had like a tube in her nose, and she was like, I was in the room. I must have been cleaning or doing like ironing clothes or something like that, and she just randomly started telling them the story of my birth. And I was standing there, and I was like, is this her way of telling me she loves me? I don't quite understand what's going on, like, because I couldn't, we weren't the kind of family that would like hug each other or tell each other, that we loved each other. It just wasn't that kind of family. In my entire parents' marriage, I've never seen him kiss, never seen him hold hands. My mom didn't even call my dad by his first name ever. um
What did she call him?
she never called him.
Like what
I
how did
asked
she
her.
address it? Like what did she
We had this argument. I told, because she used to say you're not meant to call. She was slagging one of my aunts off for calling one of my uncles by his first name, and
Mhm.
she was like, "Yeah, she was doing that," and I was like, "I don't get it. Like, how else would you call him?" She was like, "If I wanted to talk to your dad, I would just walk up to him and talk to him. Why would I need to call him his name?"
So strange.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Um, it's this conversation has become something else. But anyway, my mother passed away in December 2013. My dad didn't. So he was crying for like maybe the first day, but then like the next day he got really, really obsessed with getting married again. And I think it's because he, like I said, he's always had issues. He's always been depressed. He's always been very volatile, violent. He used to beat up my brother a lot. And we're not just talking like a smack. We're talking like my brother would wake up with like bruises the next day. He would be aching. There was one time I can't remember the reason. I think it was because like my brother missed a prayer or something like that. He would like sit him outside in the cold with no clothes on, to like humiliate and punish him, and things like that. So he did a lot of fucked up things.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the first things he said to me after my mum passed away is, "It's all fallen on you now." And at the time, it didn't really click what that meant. because for me, I process things very, very quickly. Like when my mum first started getting ill in about February of 2013, so even before she got diagnosed, in my brain, and I felt terrible about it, in my brain, I'd already thought, she's going to die. I can see it. She's going to die. She's going to be dead in a year. And I told my dad that, and he was like, oh, you're dumb. That she's not going to die. And I was like, no, look at the condition she's in. There's no way she's going to make it. And this was something that, this is what I wanted to talk about before, was like when you were saying that you don't really care what people believe. One of the reasons why I can't be an anti-theist, I feel like almost everyone I've spoken to has gone through like an anti-theist phase or is still an anti-theist. One of the reasons I can't be an anti-theist is because I've seen my mother take that kind of comfort from religion while she was dying, and I could never dream of taking that away from her, even though I think that it definitely limited her options. Like if I had 6 months to live, I'm robbing a bank. I'm doing whatever I have to get out of my system. I'm doing it. But I would never ever take that from her, because her father had passed away 2 years prior to that. She was like dreaming about him, because obviously she was thinking of that, and she was like happy, she had a sense of peace, and I'm gonna cry. I can't take that from somebody. So, and after she passed away, a lot of our family members started disassociating with us. My youngest sibling was born in the same year that my mother passed away. So I was looking after 3 children who were under the age of 3. I was looking after my sister, who was about maybe like 8 or 10 at the time, and my brother, who was just absolutely useless. He's 2 years younger than me, but it's not his fault that he's useless. Like my mom never really put it into him to do anything around the house. Even my dad was useless. Like the only thing he knew was to cook. And that was only because he'd worked in restaurants.
South Asian family, right? The boys get away with everything. They don't have to do any work, right?
Yeah, but what kind of happened with my family was my whole mum's side just completely disassociated with us, because they never got along with my dad. And their whole excuse was, oh, your dad yells at us, so we can't see you anymore. My dad's side of the family, again, he didn't have the best relationship with them either, because he was very shouty. And he would like verbally abuse them and stuff. So they would never come around. They would come around to check on us maybe once a month, make sure we were like alive. And I became very bitter about them. I would call them and I would tell them what was going on. I would be crying to them every night. And eventually, like, I even stopped crying about it. I was just like, yep, this is my life now. And I'd be telling them about it. And they would be on the other end of the line, like, how is this your life? And I'm like, help me. And they were like, we don't know how. And my dad was getting more and more obsessed with the idea of getting married. And eventually they found this poor woman for him to get married to. And she's a poor woman because she had been divorced once and widowed once. She had no children. And she also wasn't legal in this country. And he divorced her 2 or 3 weeks after they were married.
Oh, wow.
And this woman actually attempted suicide in our own house. And I had desperately tried to get her out of the bathroom. She had tried to engulf bleach. And that really turned me off to my father. Like, this was something I just could not forgive, because the moment he came home after the ambulance had left, after everyone had left, he'd been busy in the mosque. He'd like divorced her and then fucked off to the mosque. And he kind of left me to deal with the aftermath. He started making jokes about it, and I was just like, how can you do that?
Yeah.
How can you do that? And he was like, what? She was just some crazy woman. And I was like, that was a human being who almost tried to take her life in our bathroom. And then my brother kind of followed suit, because he's my brother. It's not the smartest tool in the shed. And then my entire family started blaming her, because it can never be my father's fault. She was in ICU for a week getting her stomach pumped. I don't know what the condition of her is now, but my whole family was slagging her off, like, oh, now we have to pay the fees because she's not legal here, because we have NHS, so it would be free if she was legal here, but now we have to pay for her. But after she did that, social services started coming around, and I took this as an opportunity to be like, I'm going to tell him everything. And I told my dad, because he was trying to sort of prime us. He was like, oh, you just tell him everything's fine. Don't get them involved. And I looked at him and I was like, we're not okay. I'm not lying about anything. I'm going to tell them everything that's going to go on in the house. We had a long argument about that, but I'd made up my mind, and I was going to do that. And I think that just completely turned him off to me. He just completely went cold with me. And I was in contact with the social service worker, and we had like put in place a plan where, you know, there would be regular visits from social services and we would just get some support at home, make sure that the kids are eating well, because a lot of things were wrong in the house. Like food would go off in our house and my dad would still make us eat it because he didn't want it to go to waste. He would never turn the heating on. We used to go to sleep with our coats on. In the winter, we used to get frostbite on our toes. We would never go to the doctors. There was a lot of things that was going wrong in the house. There was also the sort of subplot of my family desperately trying to get me married off to some mug.
Oh, wow. While all this was happening?
While all this was happening.
And how old were you?
This was in 2015, I think. Yeah, this was in 2015. So I must have been 20.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, the time, one of the reasons why I'm so bad at the maths is because the time doesn't feel like how far away it was.
Yeah.
Like now it feels like it was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't process how all of that happened in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
It happened in between 2013 and 2015 when all of this went down, and it really didn't feel like 2 years. So let me explain the subplot really briefly. So in 2014, one of my aunts desperately wanted me to get married to this guy. He was 5 years older than me, and I've been proposed to since I was about 15. But I don't know what it was about this guy or this family that my aunt was so obsessed with him. She just kept bringing it up, and I was like, girl, I'm raising 5 kids. I don't need this. And she was like, no, but this is like your way out. This is your way out of raising 5 kids. And I was like, I don't want a way out. If I leave this house, Lord knows what's going to happen to them. You certainly aren't taking care of them. So who's going to take care of them? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm worrying about it. But I agreed to see him. She took some like beauty shots in the garden for me. She like did my makeup, dressed me up, took some photos, and then sent off a CV to this man. That's not even a joke. She actually sent him a CV.
Oh my God.
And then he met me at my grandma's house. We talked and I asked him some questions. One of the first things he said was, I'm never leaving my mother's home. Massive red flag. Even then, with no knowledge of anything, massive red flag. He's the oldest. He has 2 sisters living in that house and his mum lives there. Like, I don't know. He was a freelance graphic designer, which just screamed double unemployed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I told my aunt, look, I'll think about it, but I don't have high hopes. And I think she took that to mean yes. Because in February of 2015, I told her, because that's when all of this, like the suicide stuff went down.
Yeah.
I told her, look, there's no way I can marry this guy. Throw that out the window. I'm not marrying him. She was like, no. You're emotional. Like a lot of things have happened. Just think about it. And I was like, no, I've thought about it. I do not want to get married to him. Okay. So you'd think that would be the end of that, because we're Salafi Muslims and we know you can't force a girl to get married. Right. I've always said that, by the way. I've always made that disclaimer. I've never said that Islam endorses forced marriages. I've always made that clear. But when my dad eventually tried to kill me in our home because the floor was messy, not even for a major reason, he literally tried to kill me. He was screaming in my face. He was stamping on the back of my neck. Damn. He was screaming at me, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you, because there was cereal on the floor, because the kids were eating cereal on the floor. Wow. He almost killed me. I called the police and it got taken care of. The first thing my aunt said to me is, the wedding's off. And I said to her, what wedding?
Yeah.
And she said, We booked the hall. We got you a dress. We booked the caterers. They paid so much money. I said, what wedding? I told you no. This is in August. I told
Wow,
you no 6 months ago. And
that's
they've been
crazy.
planning it all behind my back. It was mad. It was mental.
It's crazy. This is so crazy. I don't even
So
know what to say. It's just
sh-
like
she
they,
completely stopped talking to me.
yeah.
I lived, so after I left my dad's house, I moved house a lot. So I went from like my grandma's house to several uncles' houses. And eventually I stayed in one of my most liberal uncles' houses. I will forever be grateful for him because I would never have got off my feet without him. But I stayed in his house for 2 years, and she lives a street across from him, that aunt. And every time she saw me on the street, she would make a scene in the middle of the street.
Wow.
Every
Crazy.
time.
That's spiteful.
It was it was so spiteful. And this was in 2015, 2016. I was still a Muslim at this point. I did not leave until 2017 because I kept noticing like my family, my mosque, my Muslim community, none of them were helping me. But I've got my Jewish doctor
Yeah.
filed a new passport for me. You know, he signed
Wow.
off as proof of,
Hmm.
existence,
Yeah.
right? I joined a community center. I volunteered at like 7 places for 6 months. I was
Mhm.
just going mad trying to do stuff. My community manager, I told him my whole story. He was in tears, crying. He really helped me. My best friend, she's Indian, Hindu family. She helped me. I was like, you know what? I can't worship a God who hates these people.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Uh,
So that's
yeah.
when I'm crying. That's when I eventually left.
It's so true that like living in a multicultural society has that benefit that especially I find, I hear many Muslims, I'm sorry for what you went through. And many Muslims have this experience when they come and they see that these people are good people, like you said. I mean, it's shocking that your family would treat you like that, and all these other people actually that don't even know you are trying to help you and get you out of this situation and to make your life better, whereas your own family members who are Muslim even not supposed to do any of these things, they're actually doing a lot of these terrible things and making the situation worse. And that's just another problem with Islamic schools too, that if all your friends are Muslim, everything is Islam to you. You don't your worldview is very narrow, and you don't
Yeah.
have that breadth of experience. And like a lot of my best friends in high school were non-Muslims. Like I had Chinese friends, Vietnamese friends, like Hindu friends, Sikh
Yeah.
friends, and it was just that variety. And I think that makes the world a better place, having learning from each other and sharing from each other. So you survived this. So it's so unfortunate. Like your dad went from, seems like he just lost it, and your mom died and just got worse
he's
and worse.
he's he's kind of always not been quite right, but my
Yeah,
mom definitely was like, and then it was me, was like the barrier,
yeah.
like she and like there were a lot of shit things that my family said. Like, one of my aunts, she said something like, oh, all of this happened because your mom didn't divorce your dad. And
Wow.
I looked at her and I was like, bitch, my mom is dead, how
Yeah,
dare you,
yeah. That's
how
ridiculous.
dare you say that? It's
Honestly, I don't know what it is about South Asians. I don't want to generalize, but I mean I've heard some kind of crazy things as well like that. Hold on, my thing is making some noise. Give me a
Go
second.
for it. We need a breather anyway. Oh, sad story time, guys.
So yeah, I was just saying like I don't know. Sometimes people don't have. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about. Again, I don't want to generalize, but like there's some sort of like social etiquette that's missing, some sort of like basic decency. I
Well,
mean,
I
in
think
some ways,
it's
you find like the Desi community has a lot of things that the white community, let's call it, the other communities don't have, like much closer families and stuff
mm,
like that, take care of their parents.
yeah.
But there's also this negative side to it where they get involved in everything and they just have this sort of entitlement attitude.
I
It's
think
like,
it's very much like sort of enabled by Islam. The misogyny is definitely enabled by Islam.
yeah,
I think it could have been pre-existing because like Indians, from even Hindus, they don't really they're not exactly the most feminist people alive. But I do think that Islam and its misogyny definitely enables that a lot more, because I've been, I've had convert friends who, have like their convert white husbands and things like that, who, and their family kind of runs quite smoothly.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, like, why can they, like, why can they like be normal and
Yeah.
treat each other as equals, but like none of us can? Like,
Yeah.
why is that a thing? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know.
It's
Um,
yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I'm lucky as well. I just feel like my family they grew up in Kenya, not Pakistan or India or Bangladesh. And Kenya is kind of like Canada. It's like really multicultural and stuff. And so like my parents didn't have an arranged marriage. They had like a what so-called love marriage, right?
mm,
We didn't have arranged marriages in our culture, like really. Like it's
um,
weird,
I,
right? Like, but we didn't have that. So my family is so different from other Desi families I see. And I like it. I like this sort of distance that family, you have from other families and your in-laws.
mm,
I don't like this like thing where everyone's living together and getting
well,
know?
family, even now, family has always been really, really important to me. I think it's probably like one of the hardest things about leaving was that I had to leave my family behind. Because at that point, when you're raising two newborns, because my brother, my second youngest brother, was only about 11 months old. Well,
What? Wow.
yeah,
He was a baby.
yeah, they were both babies. So my youngest and my second youngest brother were babies. My mom, she used to cry when she was in hospital. She said, "They're not my
Oh my
children anymore
God.
because they don't recognize me. They recognize you." Um, it, it it became a point like they took my kids away, and it was just really fucked up, man.
Yeah. It's sorry you had to go through all this. It's that's a challenge too about talking about such stuff is it kind of forces you to relive it when you try to put it aside and you try to move on with your life and get on with it. But whenever, you share the story and you talk about it, it kind of brings everything back, right? And that's
I'm
the
trying to.
tough part.
It helps me to talk about it because like I'm able to joke and laugh a bit about it now because I've told this story so many times,
Yeah.
and it helps every single time I tell it because it gets easier with each time.
Yeah.
But like that's one thing I still can't get over is that these people that like I genuinely loved, I loved my family, and I would, there were people that I would talk to every day, and the way they turned on me. I remember my aunt said something to me after I reported my dad, and she said, "I'd rather be beaten up by my own family than a bunch of strangers." Because she was trying to say like you shouldn't have reported your dad. And thinking about that now, I would rather have the whole world fighting me than the people that are meant to love me and
Yeah.
trust me.
Yeah.
It's just, and like I really feel like it's desensitized me to what anybody else does to me now, and
Yeah.
it's just not normal.
Yeah.
It's just not normal to be able to hold your own when the whole world is against you.
It's crazy. I don't like, I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't even know where this is coming from. I think it's a sort of tribalistic,
It really is, yeah.
like the misogyny. It doesn't make any sense. Like allowing, your dad to beat you up and then to say that it's okay, you shouldn't have reported him, or it's your mom, everything's a woman's fault. And these are women saying these things.
Abdullah, like my dad has beaten my youngest sibling. He has beaten up a baby,
Wow, jeez.
a baby, and
That's
they will
crazy.
still fight tooth and nail for him.
Oh my God, that's crazy. It's like I don't know where this comes from.
I don't know
I don't
either.
understand it. It's just I can't understand this. It's just like it's awful.
I've been trying to understand it for years.
Yeah.
I've been trying to understand it for years. I just could not, like, I knew it. The worst thing about it is that I knew no one would be on my side, that I
Wow.
would not be able to rely on anybody after I reported my father.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that I even had a conversation, my
Yeah.
dad nearly killed me, should
Yeah.
I call the police? It
Yeah.
should not even be a question in my
Yeah.
brain. But it was, because I knew that if I did it, that would be the end for me and my family.
Yeah.
Um, but at that point, it was already the end. I was never seeing them, and they didn't give a fuck about me, being
Yeah.
100% real.
Yeah.
Um, and the way they all turned, even though I saw it coming, it still killed me.
Yeah.
And like,
And
that doesn't even compare to the heartbreak that I experienced when I decided Islam wasn't my religion anymore.
oh yeah.
That heartbreak does not compare with it. In one fell swoop, I lost my best friend, I lost my father, I lost my children, I lost my whole family, and that does not compare to me losing Islam,
Wow.
because I lost all meaning. I did not know. I did not know what my life was going to be anymore. I was just waiting to burn in hell for a whole year.
Oh my God. So you left Islam after all this happened. You finally were able to find your way out of Islam, but you still had doubt about hell. You
Yeah, I
still
just
scared of hell?
I couldn't live with the idea that all the people who actually care about me are going to burn in hell.
Yeah. I
Sorry.
mean, honestly, it's okay. It's true, right? I mean, why should they burn in hell? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's something that it's one way of finding your way out of this false like religion, right? This almost like it's like a cult, right? I mean, to some people, like you included, it was a cult because everything was Islam to you, and when you left it, you lost everything. Like that's a definition of a cult.
Yeah.
Your family was taken away, your friends, your every cultural marker, every religious marker, everything in your life that you were connected with, and that's not easy. I mean, I think people don't understand like just how tough it is to lose everything like that. And it's even tough for, I'd say, many Muslims to understand, because many moderate Muslims, they don't have that sort of, they don't have that relationship with Islam. And
Um,
yeah.
I have had the discussion many, many times about, because people like to assume that I left Islam because my family's horrible.
Hmm.
Like, just to be real, and I can see how they reach that
Hmm.
conclusion. I can see
Yeah.
the thought process.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if I did not have Islam in that time, I would have not survived it. The only thing that was keeping me going was that I thought there's God up there that's on my side. God is up there, and at the end of the day, I can pray to him and I can take some solace in that. It was after all of that that I thought, why would I want to go to heaven anyway? Why would I want to paradise with the worst people in my life? I'd rather have a terrible time with people that I actually like.
Yeah.
I would rather, and this we had this conversation before we started the stream. This is why I'm down. If it's all real, I don't care. Burn me in hell with all my favorite people. Go
Yeah.
for it.
I can understand why you're saying that and where you're coming from. My perspective was a little bit different. I always felt that it's okay to me, I felt that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to avoid burning in hell. If you had some evil dictator that was going to punish you or punish your family and torture you and abuse you, what could you do other than to submit to them, right? And so that's what I was doing as a Muslim. I was like, okay, I gotta get as many people as I can to be on Allah's good side, because if I don't, then all of these people, my kids, my wife, all of them are gonna go to hell with me. Not with me, but they're gonna go to hell. So I have to get them to be as religious as possible. I had to be the Islamic man in the family. I had to like put limits on everything, and like limit the TV, not allow them to listen to music, put them in Islamic school. I had to do whatever I could do in order protect them, right? I mean, I didn't see God, Allah, as evil, but I was definitely seeing, it was like we were under, we were slaves to this God, right? And we had no choice, we had no ability to get out of it. So I was willing to do whatever it took, other than, let's say, something immoral. But then even then, like you said, like, when you were talking about Anwar Avlaki and how, Anwar Avlaki was a door to many people to get into jihad. And even for me, I mean, I
If I
hate
was
to
a
say,
man, he certainly would have been my door.
yeah, and I was like, I hate to say that, like, I fell into that too. Like, I was I hate to even say it, but I was pro jihad as well. Not in the sense that, like, in the sense that if there was a legitimate struggle in the world between, like, what I considered, like, defensive jihad would have been if someone came to, like, a Muslim country and attacked them and tried to kill them, that would be a legitimate jihad. And if you died, you would go to Jannah immediately. You'd be a martyr. And if there was an offensive, there couldn't be an offensive jihad because there was no state, there was no religious, there was no, because as
Yeah,
a Salafi, you have to have the Amir. The Amir has to, and I don't really want to get into that too much, but the point is, I fell into that and I was thinking jihad's the best thing in the world. Look at the hadith, all the hadith talk about jihad, and jihad's the best, not the inner jihad, but the outer jihad. So if this door to radicalization was definitely there. And the other thing I wanted to kind of get into a little bit was the whole thing about Qadar and Qadar, and how this is so confusing for Muslims too. Like, how is it that, everything is predestined, yet we still go to hell? In a sense, it's almost like the problem of evil all over again, in a way that God intentionally made all these people knowing they're still going to go to hell. Why would he do that? Like, why
yeah.
would you make those people then? Just don't make them. Like,
It
okay, I
was.
understand life's a test, blah, 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 but why did you make all
It's
these
not.
people
It's not good
fail?
enough. It's not a good enough answer for me. And the reason is that only somebody that's cruel would do that. It's like setting up a. I always give this analogy, but it's like a mother giving birth to a child, and
Yeah.
then that child just not acknowledging them for being her mother, and she's setting it on fire forever.
Yeah.
It just it's not logical.
It doesn't make sense.
Um,
I mean, none of us, I mean, ask anybody, I ask, any single person I ask. I mean, there was one guy, one Muslim Dawa guy I was talking to. I'm not going to mention his name. He probably won't like it, because apparently, it's bad luck to talk to me, in a sense that if you talk
it's
to me,
bad
I don't
luck.
know. Anyways, so this guy was talking to me on private message, and
Uh-huh.
and and I said to him, would you, like, could you do, like, could you actually, if you were a human being and you had a choice, okay, this is what I said, if you had a choice that you could avoid this person going to hell, or this person could go to hell, or you could avoid creating an individual that, even if it was like a robot, and let's say you were going to punch this robot could feel pain,
Mm.
but you knew that robot was going to mess up and you were going to have to end up punishing it, would you still make that robot? Like, would you, unless, and or would
They
you?
always say yes, though. That's what's annoying.
Well, in this case, he said no, and I said, well, that makes you better than Allah. And he said, don't say that. I said, I know you don't want me to say that,
I've had this
but
argument
that's
so many
true. Like,
times. I'm tired of people walking around the question and just being like, "Oh, but what about no? Stay on point." Would you do it? And they just can't answer
you
it.
you
And I
can.
mean, at least he
Yeah,
was trying to be honest and he
yeah,
said, no, I wouldn't do it.
yeah,
But I guess his answer ultimately would be, well, Allah and his ultimate knowledge and whatever. Like, we've been there. We've all had those
yeah.
arguments, which is why, like, something that I think I appreciate a little bit about when people go off on one with me is that they don't do it in my DMs.
Mhm.
They do it publicly, and they get clotted because I don't play nice.
Yeah.
Um, I do, but once they go off rail and they start being condescending, it's just my time to shine, honestly.
You know,
Um,
I can't take that anymore. I just block people now. I'm just like, I'm so tired of it, just
See,
ruins
the
my
thing
day.
is,
I can't deal with it anymore. If
I
people are
think
being negative, I just block them now.
I really enjoy introspection, and
Yeah.
there is a point to this. I really, really enjoy introspection. I right now, the way that my worldview is kind of framed is that everything is chaos, and as human beings we're able to kind of control some of it and make sense of it. And for me, it's not my fault that I enjoy certain things. And I think in a certain sadistic kind of way, I really, really enjoy having heated arguments.
Yeah, I do too. I honestly do. I think it's if the person is coming in good faith, especially, and then I am game. I love
Of
having those
course,
conversations.
100%, 100%,
But like if
yes.
people they're not coming. Like I had this one popular Twitter guy tag me in this post that it was meant to belittle. It was one of those like incest sort of discussions, but he wasn't trying to have a conversation with me. He was just tagging
No,
us and saying, "Oh, look what these stupid atheists believe or whatever." Right?
I just don't understand. Like, my parents are cousins.
Yeah.
I don't understand how they can sit here and tell us that you support incest when Islam literally allows you to marry your cousin.
Yeah. And so I just want to take a quick break now, just for a
Yeah,
second, just to share your. I thought this would be a good idea.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, I think I
for those
need
of
it as
you
well, so.
who wanna support Faye, obviously, she's gone through a lot in life, and she has a Patreon, and you can support her artwork. Do check
Oh,
it
thank
out.
you.
I'm gonna share it there as well. And like we said before, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's by viewer discretion is advised, of course, but do go there
Can I
and
just like explain what my YouTube channel is right now?
sure, yeah, go for it.
So for the last 20 or so days, so since lockdown here in London, I've been uploading every single day, and I try not to make too much serious content. So if you wanted to go to my channel to look for like debunking Islam and that kind of thing, you'll find some videos. Like there's a couple I've done. I've done one on slavery, I've done one on pedophilia, I've done one on modesty culture, I've done a bunch on hijab. But most of my videos, I like to have fun. that's that's what I want to focus on. I think that while like the work that Abdullah Samir does, that Apostate Prophet does, that secular jihadists, all of those people, they're wonderful. Like, I think we need them. It was definitely a gateway to me becoming comfortable with the kind of person I am. But I'm more aiming towards becoming an internet personality. I just want to become normalized. So right now we are on track to creating a subreddit. I'm gonna upload today at some point. I think I'll have Saf on at some later today, I think, as well. We're probably gonna do a stream. So if you just want to have some banter, grab a drink, just have a giggle, that's what my channel is
Right.
for.
Yeah,
So yeah.
everything. I mean, one of the criticisms we get is, why do you guys always talk about Islam? And no, we don't always talk about Islam. We do other things.
I
Like, this is a good
certainly don't.
example.
I
Yeah,
think
it's a good
that,
example. Like
yeah,
this is a perfect example. Like it's not only about Islam. I mean, unfortunately, it has to be at some levels somewhat
yeah.
because of what
I
you went through, what I went through, and what I went through is nothing like what you went through. For me, it was more like a personal cost of the
Yeah,
choices I put on myself. Nobody like abused me or hurt me, anything like
yeah.
that. It was my own self that willingly gave up, 15 years of my life doing
Mm.
this nonsense stuff, right?
And I think, you know what, that is extremely commendable. It's not easy to admit that something is a sunk cost after investing 15 years into it.
Yeah,
The same thing happened to me, because the same kind of paradox of like, do I live my true self, or do I and admit that 20 years of my life were a waste, or do I continue living a lie? And ultimately, it's not an easy decision to make, because 20 years, long time. It's a
yeah,
long time to invest into one thing, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate that. And I think at the beginning of my channel, one of the reasons why I started addressing it is that I realized I literally can't tell any story without bringing up the fact that I used to be a Muslim, because so much of my life was invested
yeah,
in it.
yeah.
So I've made a lot of content around like my struggles, a lot of mental health. I talk about Islam, and I enjoy talking about Islam because it's something I invested a lot of my life into. I mean, guys, give me a break. It was the thing that I was fascinated and enthralled by for years. But I don't want it to be my whole identity, and I never wanted it to be, but it's still such a close thing to my heart, because the amount of DMs and the amount of emails and messages that I get that is just like, hey, you make me feel a little less alone in the world, and that's all I want.
Mhm.
Worth it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Someone's saying cousin marriage is not incest.
Yes, it is.
It's
Fuck you. Yes, it is.
it's marrying your relative, right? So it's a legal incest, let's say. It's a legal incest.
Look,
Um,
your cousin is literally your aunt. Like your, I can't believe I'm explaining this. They are blood related to you. They are
yeah,
blood. You do an ancestry test, they will show up, even if they haven't done the test. I did one, by the way. I'm
yeah.
100% Bengali.
Are
Your
you?
cousin will show up without even having them done the ancestry test. That's how related they are to you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's and cousin marriage is something that Muhammad himself did. He married his cousin Zaynab,
mhm.
and there's no sort of like disclaimer that this could be dangerous for your children, especially if done over and over again.
Mhm.
Cousin marriage, of course, is something that's been done throughout history. Doing it once is not the end of the world. I mean, it doesn't. There's a slight risk to genetic abnormalities, but again, it's
It's
so
because of
minor.
the alleles. So if you have a lot of like recessive genetic defects, like for example, my second youngest brother, he has a very rare condition called Ellis Van Creveld syndrome. So he was born with a small hole in his heart. And my sister has a recessive gene for that. She was born with two thumbs. And my second to youngest
Oh
brother
my
was born with 6 fingers, 6 toes. We
damn.
call him a witch child. It was funny.
Is that how you is that why you're 100% Bengali?
Probably because my
Yeah.
parents are cousins, yeah.
Oh my God. Gee.
But so the doctors actually said it's probably because
Oh man.
my parents are related that he had
Whew.
that disease. But
Ooh.
even if we were to agree, that cousin marriages is not incest,
Yeah.
how do you explain Adam and Hawa and all their offspring? I mean, come on.
Yeah. And repeated like in your family, there must have been a lot of cousin marriages because of these.
There were.
Yeah, because so the way I see it is if you marry your cousin once, it's not going to be the end of the world. But if you
Mm,
repeatedly do it over and over and over and over again in a community, you will have worse and worse issues because the gene pool is too small, right? And
mm,
there's no genetic diversity there, like
yeah.
you said.
I mean,
So
one of the reasons why I'm so terrified of having children is that what if I have a lot of underlying issues that I pass on? Like that would not be fair for me to have a child.
if you marry your cousin, you mean?
No, if I give birth to a child
Oh
with
no,
my
if
genes.
you marry outside, you should be fine. I mean, there's going to be a point where I think they're gonna
Yeah.
be able to test for like a lot of these things, and eventually, I mean, in
Mm,
the future, I don't know like how soon that's going to happen,
mm,
but we're going to get to the point where you can actually remove those genetic errors. It's just going to start small, but
yeah.
like this is a very real possibility, like that you can just say, okay, well, this is a bad gene, get rid of it before the baby is born. I mean, probably it'll only be available to like rich people and stuff. But at least if you have the test and you
Yeah.
have the ability to know that,
It's certainly helpful.
yeah, and so just stay away from
I
Bengali.
wonder. It really makes me wonder, though, how many religious people will be placarding saying that the disability is God's will.
You know,
Um,
it's like the
you know
coronavirus thing,
what?
right?
Since
Like,
the coronavirus,
yeah, you think
first of all,
yeah,
first of all, first of all, you need to react. I've done it on my channel, but you need to react to what Muslim preachers are saying about the coronavirus
yeah.
because some of it genuinely makes me angry. Do you know a character called Muhammad Salah? I think his
Yeah,
name
it's a
is
sheikh,
Muhammad Salah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah,
like very
yeah,
pale. He's got like a
yeah, yeah,
ginger
yeah, yeah,
beard.
yeah, yeah,
Um, he said that if you die of coronavirus, you'll die a martyr's death.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
fucked up.
Yeah. Well, it's it's kind of positive in a sense. They're saying, well, yay, at least you'll go to Jannah. I mean, that's sort of like because there's a hadith that says if you die from the plague.
Yeah,
But I hope that this doesn't mean people become careless. I mean, to me, that's the downside. If you're,
that's what I'm worried about. People are crazy.
yeah, and I mean, this is why I think religion is bad. I think religion is bad because it's always going to have some like stuff like this. And the coronavirus right now is exposing like just how bad it can get with religious people and
Mm,
not listening to common sense because they're like, and it's not just religious people, it's also like pseudoscience people and conspiracy
yeah.
theorists and
Well, like this is the other thing. Anti-vaxxers have really become quiet since this thing started.
yeah. Well, now they're talking about 5G.
5G.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's
That's what
it.
caused it.
That's what they moved to. Yeah, it's the
That's
same
how
people.
that works.
It's the same people. Yeah.
But I also wanted to say that I think it's important to highlight that I will openly admit that I left Islam for an emotional reason because it was,
Mm.
and I don't think that that's invalid.
Yeah. I forgot to talk about that.
Mm.
How there's a couple of things you said that were interesting.
All right, let's go through the list.
Yeah, in your video, I mean, one of them was, you didn't say it here, but you said that, there was many things, there was some limitations that were put on you that, were difficult. Like, you wanted to have a pet, you couldn't have a pet. Uh,
Drawing
and there
was
was
one of
so,
them.
sorry?
Drawing was one of
Oh
them
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
drawing. So, and you said that, to some people it might sound petty. Like some of
Mhm.
these things might sound petty, that I just wanted to do these things.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say that, this is something that's actually thrown at ex-Muslims a lot, that
Mhm.
you guys just wanted to do this and that. And I used to avoid, I actually, I didn't like to talk about the fact that I wasn't able to buy a home on mortgage,
Mhm.
because people say you left Islam for a mortgage. But the fact is, then you're just playing the game. So now I'm like,
You
I'm gonna
left
talk about
Islam because of a mortgage.
I know
I've
it's funny
never
because like,
heard that. I'm sorry. I've heard a lot of things. I've heard you left Islam to have sex with everybody, but I have never I have never heard you left Islam for.
I know it's pretty hilarious. It's actually a meme. I wish I saved it. I wish I would have saved it, but there's a meme made about me where
Oh my god.
Palestinian left Islam for buying a house or something like that, right? It's just like, I mean, I would
Oh,
have probably got an Islamic mortgage at some point. I was saving for the down payment for that.
Abdullah,
It's
when I start
expensive.
my subreddit, you need to repost that. You need to find it and you need to I'm dying over here.
Yeah. And I used to be kind of I used to avoid talking about stuff
Mm,
like this, because it's just so easy for them to kind of, like, just belittle you and disregard your whole thing and say, oh, look, he's emotional. I've come to believe that we are all emotional beings. We all do things for emotional reasons. There's no way to cut that out of our personalities, of our humanity. We humans, we are emotional beings, and we are rational beings second. Okay. And there's a book called Everything is Fucked by Mark Manson. He's so
mhm,
beautiful, explains it. He gives the example of a man, a real life man, that lost his ability to have emotions. He became a psychopath.
mhm.
Actually, I don't know if it's a real life man, it's just a made up story, but
Well, I mean, sociopaths, they're about 1 in 25.
yeah.
Um, sorry, my psychology studentness is coming out. But there's 1 in 25 sociopaths, and they actually can't. Well, they don't process emotions very well. Some of
Yeah.
them, there's different levels, but yeah, it's very difficult to imagine a world where you make decisions without considering how you feel about something. And I think for a really long time while I was a Muslim, I didn't understand a lot of emotions. I've
Mm,
said this in a number of videos, but I didn't really understand what joy was, didn't really understand what love was. Like my family, again, like we weren't really a touchy-feely kind of family, so that wasn't something that I experienced, which is why when my mum would like say little things to me, I would never really understand what she was doing. I'd be like, okay, cool story, like what do you mean? And there was one time where she hugged me, and it was the only time in my life that she hugged me. It was a few months before she died, and I was like, this is a weird feeling. Like what is this feeling? Like why do I want to cry? You know? Um and it was only after I left that I truly experienced those things, and it was like a mind fuck. It was a mind fuck because I actually like had a mental breakdown because one of my friends, I was with one of my friends, thankfully, and she was like, "You're meant to be happy about this." I was like, "I don't know what this is."
yeah.
You don't get to experience that, and I always like really I'm also an Aquarius, so I used to attribute it to that I used to think it's really dumb. I used to think like, oh, I'm like this rational, like really hard facts and no emotions kind of person. I never used to cry. I never used to like. I was always really funny. I always had a sense of humor, but I was always like cold hard facts. We're not going to deal with emotions. But what I realize now is that religion is a deeply emotional thing. no one is religious for logical reasons. Because you can't prove God.
Yeah.
You can't prove that Muhammad's right. You
Yeah.
can't prove any. There's a lot of things in religion that you do. Fucking angels, you can't prove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you are believing it because of your fear of, you know, there not being anything after you die.
Yeah.
It's such a deeply emotional thing. So I don't understand, because people join religion for emotional reasons all the time. You know, when we talk about sociopaths, we always talk about them being irreligious sociopaths. There's the reason why.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have emotion.
That's
so
yeah.
it religion is such a deeply emotional thing, and I'm of the opinion that if you leave Islam because you like dogs, you're good. I'm sorry, it's a valid reason.
Yeah.
You like dogs. How is that your fault?
Yeah, and it's a game they're playing. I mean, I understand, like, logically speaking, that you need to know. I mean, the problem is, once you do this, you're playing the game. The game is to make it impossible for you to leave Islam by making all possible venues of leaving Islam false. So, for example, if you said, I left Christianity because you know, it didn't feel right to me that Jesus was God. Mashallah, brother, he found the true God is only one God, Allah, and Trinity didn't make sense to him. Whatever. Therefore, this is fine, right? Or I didn't, you know, I was Hindu and this and that, and mashallah. But like, when it comes to leaving Islam, of course, there's no valid reason, there's no valid excuse, there's nothing you can possibly say that would be good enough for you to leave Islam, right? And because, frankly speaking, you're not like, how can you leave Islam if it's true, right? There must be something wrong with you. There must be something wrong with your reasoning. But you're playing the game because, you know, people. It's like the analogy of the cave, right? The Plato's analogy of the cave. You have all these people in the cave. You know, one guy goes outside and says, "Come to the light," right? And they're like, no. We don't like you're
It's a
bad.
fear for sure.
Stay away from us. You know, like, we like the cave.
You know what? One of my best friends, his name is Simon. We come from completely different walks of life, but I consider him my brother because we just get each other. And when I was leaving my uncle's home, I told him something that I will never forget. I said to him, I can leave my family, but my family is all I know. Outside of my family, any number of things can happen. It's like walking into a room that's full of doors and I don't know what's behind any of them.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people go through that when they think about things like this. I quickly want to address that I don't care if a God exists. There's some people who's like, oh, you can't disprove there's a God. My point isn't whether or not there's a God. First of all, I don't care if there's a God. Even if there is a God, you need to give me a good reason to worship that God. Him being a creator is not a good enough reason for me to worship him. And secondly, that wasn't my point. My point is that you believe in something that you cannot prove for an emotional reason.
Yeah.
That is rooted in an emotional reason.
It is emotional, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
and another thing that I wanted to add, so the reason why I think I've cracked it, I think I understand why a lot of Muslims can't accept that people just leave Islam. I think I've cracked it.
Yeah.
Because so currently I'm studying psychology. I'm doing a degree in psychology, and we had a whole chapter on conspiracy theories. Wow. Do you know why conspiracy theories come about? Why? No. So there's a heuristic or a fallacy that's called I think it's called the big cause, big effect fallacy. And Islam is such a big thing for Muslims.
Yeah.
So, for example, like to give a simple example, like we can't believe that Diana just died in a road accident. Like Princess Diana died in a road accident because it's the princess, you know? Like obviously there must be something bigger at hand. That's why that conspiracy exists, because we can't envision something everyday and normal happening to somebody so high profile. So I think the reason why Muslims can't fathom that we can just leave because we like dogs, for example, because the fallacy is that Islam is such a true and big thing that there's no way you can leave for such a minor reason.
That's a nice way to put it.
It's a literal conspiracy theory.
Yeah, you know, and I find that religious people and conspiracy theorists, the two, if you drew a Venn diagram,
they go together.
Overlap, because it just becomes when you have and there was a beautiful quote I put in one of my videos from this. There's a flat earther documentary on Netflix. I very much enjoyed watching it. And there's a beautiful quote this one guy said.
Oh, wait. I think I've seen that one.
Yeah. And the quote
What's it
he made
called? I've forgotten.
is called Beyond the Curve.
That's
And
the one. Yeah, I've seen
yeah,
that one.
and
It's a really good watch.
the quote he said was the more like the more obscure your reality is, or the more convoluted, the more difficult it is to make it make sense, and the more conspiracy you have to kind of make up. So flat earth goes against so much of reality that you really have to like make this giant sort of thing to kind of make it work. And same thing with the Gog and Magog in the Quran, and where's Gog and Magog, and you have to make this, you know, this huge convoluted, the like, you know, the living in the earth or something like that, you know.
When I was looking up for videos for my compilation about Muslim preachers reacting to the coronavirus, there was one guy who was saying that the coronavirus was a biological weapon that was created by the Israelites
yeah.
to thin the herd, and I was
Yeah,
just
you're
like,
talking about Imran Hussein, right? I reacted to him. Yeah, I couldn't believe what he was saying. I was like,
oh, it's
I couldn't
mad.
believe it. It was so ridiculous because Muslims are dying too. It's so stupid. Like, what are you saying?
It's
Like,
so dumb.
sorry, Israelis are dying too. Like, well, everybody is dying. Like, it's not like, what kind of weapon is this? And it's like, it's killing 2%. Like, what kind of biological weapon is?
Oh,
Yeah,
conspiracy theories, the house. Anytime something happens, there's always one mufti that just comes out with a conspiracy theory.
and I want to say one more thing. We'll start ending off here. You got to finish the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That a lot of Dawa people have made this whole thing about rationality now. They're trying to rebrand Islam and to say it's a very rational religion. Ahmadis are very good at this.
Ahmadis are, yeah.
Yeah, and they'll make it very logical speaking and stuff like that.
I can't take them seriously though. That's my problem. That's my problem. It's I have a voice in the back of my head.
Yeah.
I call her fundamentalist Faye. It's just anytime she's just like my residual Salafi.
Yeah,
She's just sitting in there, and anytime like an Ahmadi comes along, she's like, "You can't talk to this. This person isn't even a real Muslim."
Yeah, they definitely do a lot of cherry picking. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
dismiss them because they're Ahmadi, but they do a lot of cherry picking with the Hadith, especially. And it just, to me, it seems inconsistent. Like, how do you like throw out all of these Hadith when there's no real difference between this Hadith and that Hadith, but yet
Yeah, it's
you
kind of the same for Quranists as well.
for it?
I think Quranists.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so Quranis, I find that they have a lot of good points, and I support them. I think that they're probably one of the most moderate Muslims there are out there, but I can't take them seriously.
Yeah.
And that's on me. I'm admitting that that's my problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, honestly, all religion is, I mean, all of Islam, and to be honest, all revealed religions to me seem to be man-made. It's just how many hoops you want to jump through to try to make it seem legitimate, right? And Ahmadis are on a better base because they've already said there's no such thing as miracles. Everything is sort of within the laws of the universe. But then the challenge is they really have to twist and twist and twist to make it make sense. Because, like, you know, Reason on Faith, Sohail Ahmed made a post about the ant in
I
the
was
Quran.
just going to bring him up. He said, "Shout out to the Ahmadi apologists."
Yeah. And
Miss you, by the way.
He has an article on ant-men in the Quran and how they really have to stretch this story to make it like logical, because it's completely logical. It's illogical, right? But like, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, and thankfully we have people that like Sohail that are specifically, you know, speaking to that, because I don't know that stuff. I don't even bother with it because I don't even know what you believe. Like, I don't even care, because you're harmless. You're like a fly, like whatever. Believe what you want. You're like a modern new age hippie type of person. Like, yes, there's going to be some sort of life choices, but like, I can't speak to that because I was former Salafi Muslim. I don't understand.
It just like for me, like last year, I know you wanted to finish in 5 minutes, but I really don't think you will. But last year we did a bunch of things in one day. Like in the beginning, we went to like this really progressive gathering. We went to like, it was like the identity politics of Muslims. It was really bizarre. We had lesbians leading prayers. We had people, you know, using they them pronouns.
What was this?
this was called the Inclusive Mosque Initiative. It was in the
Oh,
basement of a hotel. It wasn't
oh,
in a mosque.
okay.
Of course, it wasn't in a mosque.
That's
But
so
it was just a bizarre experience because I want to support them. Like I really do think like, okay, you're a little nutty, but you know what? This is better than what we've got going on. But Armin, he was sitting right next to me, and we just kept cracking awful jokes while they were praying.
yeah.
We just kept. I was like, I would sit in this. I think I'm losing my mind. And he was like, yeah, I'll take ISIS over this.
Oh
Like
my.
this is worse. No, it's not. And he was like, yes, it is. And Jimmy was like saying, you know, Jimmy Bunga,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
shut the fuck up. Like,
Yeah.
why? Why are
I,
you doing this?
it's honestly a challenge.
Really
I've
hard.
heard Matt Dillahunty talk about the same thing when he was asked about fundamentalist versus reformist.
Yeah.
One of them is more intellectually consistent, and
Yes.
the other one is not so intellectually consistent, but it's better
I
for the world.
I was genuinely so surprised at myself that I felt more comfortable in the shouty environment of Speaker's Corner where all the Salafis are, and
Yeah.
they're all coming after me.
Yeah.
I was more comfortable there than in the Inclusive Mosque
Yeah.
Initiative. It was a mind fuck. I was like, why? Why
was-
am I okay with people who literally just told me
Yeah.
they would behead me in the middle of the street if I was in an Islamic state?
Yeah.
Why am I more comfortable with them? Like it's kind of messed, but it
Yeah.
also makes sense.
It's, you know what? It's weird and inconsistent, and
Sorry, I
it's
feel like I'm
often
yelling a lot.
it's okay. It's often it's a challenge, I think, for people like us that we see. I mean, I know you said you don't use the term anti-theist, and I don't use it either.
Mm,
We see religion as a net negative for the world, right?
yes.
Yeah. So me too. And so the challenge is, and I think especially for Armin, he's much more strongly in that vein.
Uh-huh.
They don't like, and they don't like people to water down religion because they want it to go away. But I don't care if it goes away. I mean, I do in a sense,
Yes.
but like it's gonna go away on its own. I don't think we can force the
The
matter.
way, yeah, that's what I believe as well. I think it's really unrealistic for people to expect religion to just disappear. I just don't think it's realistic because I think that being humans, we're always going to be a little delusional. Like even as a person now, like having left religion, I still carry delusions that keep me warm at night. You know, I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with that, and I
Yeah.
don't have a problem with people like having their own personal little beliefs. But the problem I have is when it becomes political. That's
Yeah.
more what I'm against.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get out of the political system and the
Yeah.
political sphere, but you want to have your community centers and your mosques and your like little Sufi circles where you dance around and you sing. Go for it. Like fun, right?
Yeah.
I'm not against that. I'll join one. It's easy, you know, like it looks fun.
Yeah, it's definitely it's the dogma that becomes a problem in general, and
Yeah.
honestly, what we're saying is we want to talk about this because we feel that it influences the world in a way that is a net negative, and that's why we talk about these things. That's why we speak about these things. It's also therapeutic, and we want to help other people to not make the same mistakes we made. But at the end of the day, everyone has to choose for themselves. And honestly, you just cannot get some people out of bad religion. They just don't get it, and like it's an emotional thing, right? Like, so if they don't get it, they don't get it. Just leave them alone. That's fine, and I'm okay with that. If you guys can't, if you don't see my point of view, that's okay. Like, we can agree to disagree, but have respect for each other. And
you know what? Opposite opinions are what the world makes. What makes the world go round? The world would honestly be so boring if we were just sitting in a circle agreeing with each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I enjoy people having different opinions. I certainly don't think I'm right all the time, and I think that that's really important to be able to open yourself up to understanding that other people think in different ways, and maybe you might not be right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do enjoy Armin. I think that him kind of losing his mind over religious people is funny.
Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of a different approach too between different people, like for example Armin and
myself.
And yeah, and it's the difference is that I support people like Mufti Abu Layth. I support people
I think he's cool, yeah.
Hamza Yusuf. Even a lot of the things he said are very progressive and almost, I'd say, reformist, even though he doesn't want to use that word. I think Yasir Qadhi has now
I think Yasir Qadhi,
he's another reformist. I think he's just not
well,
he's trying. I mean, to some extent.
I was kind of for him until I heard some of the stuff he was saying about the coronavirus, and I was like, man, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, it goes up and down with all of
Yeah.
these guys, you know, like
Yasser Qadi, since his like Salafi days, has
yeah,
definitely calmed down.
yeah. I mean, he's now considered like misguidance, and he's
Yeah,
anyway like he's he's
funny.
he's stretching so much now that, you know, like the whole zombies in the Quran, the Gog and Magog as zombies, and he's trying his best to keep the illusion of faith alive. And who knows what he personally believes anymore?
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like he's
that's all
on his way out.
speculation.
Hmm?
I think that's all speculation. I think ultimately what my goal is, like I know a lot of people's goals, like Zara's goal, for example, is just eradicate religion. I don't find it realistic, and I also don't want that.
Yeah,
I would rather people just stop taking life so seriously.
yeah,
You know, like I want Islam to be at the same level of Christianity.
yeah,
Like we can say whatever the hell we want about Muhammad and not be killed for it.
yeah,
Like, you know, like make a bunch of cartoons and it's okay. Like there's be a couple of people turning up their noses. Oh, that's distasteful, but we carry on. That's what I want.
absolutely. And I think that's a good way to end this. Reason on Faith, I think you saw his message. He'd love to have you deep dive into more topics on Islam.
You
I
know
mean,
what? I saw that comment and I would love to as well, but the thing is I can do that. I can do that for hours, but it's really hard to edit it down.
yeah,
So the last time I did that was when I got very angry at someone trying to justify rape. And I think Apostate Prophet actually shouted out that video. It's like 50 minutes long. It's a banger. You should go and watch it.
yeah,
But I can only really do that when I'm angry about something.
yeah,
Like otherwise it just becomes like this long tangent.
yeah,
It just becomes like this a lot, and some people find it really relaxing to listen to, but it's just not the kind of content I want to make.
yeah,
Um, but when I'm angry and I'm on one, it really does. It really is a spectacle to watch, and that's what I want to make.
yeah. I think about there's another comment about Yasir Qadhi about speculating whether he believes or not. I would take his claims at face value that he does believe in Islam,
Yeah, it's the
but
same with
like
Majid Nawaz.
his
Just let
public
people identify themselves.
well his public views, Yasir Qadhi, have gone to the point where he's like, I went to a class with Yasir Qadhi, and he used to be Salafi. He's still kind of Salafi. I don't know if he calls himself Salafi.
He's still conservative.
Yeah, but when I went to his class, he actually said it's okay to celebrate birthdays. This was as a Muslim, as a Salafi
Oh,
Muslim,
really?
he said it's okay to celebrate birthdays. You should celebrate your wife's anniversary or your husband's anniversary. I mean, sorry, your anniversary, not your wife. Obviously, both of you have the same anniversary. What am I talking about? But you should celebrate anniversaries. He's like, I used to wear my pants above my ankles. I don't think we need to do that. He said, that's fine. Don't worry
Wow,
about
he's
that.
softened up.
This
He's gone
was, I'm
soft.
telling you, this was when I was Muslim. He said all these things, and I never celebrated birthdays in my house for my kids since
Do
I
you
was
know what? Do you know what my teacher told me about men wearing trousers under
the
their
ankle.
ankle? She
Yeah.
used to say that any man who covers their ankle, his feet will be in fire.
Yeah, there's a hadith like that, right? But
It's not a joke.
he explained why it's not an issue, and so from Islamic perspective, right? And he talked about how it's okay to wear silk, like little patches of silk. He talked about, like, I'm telling you,
He's
Yasir
softened.
Qadhi is a reformist. He said, I want to say certain things, but I cannot say them right now. Like I'm not making a conspiracy out of this. What I mean is, he wants to do it in a calculated manner that people will be okay with. Like, for example, he wanted to have PowerPoint slides at Jummah. And he's, like I said,
That's sick.
like some of the things he said to me are a breath of fresh air. Like I think
Sorry.
I appreciate him. I know he's Salafi kind of leaning, and I know that he's made this big rant against Murtad. He raged against, I think, my video about him, which is why he made that angry Murtad
Yeah, I mean,
rage post. But I still think overall he's a net positive, which is why a lot of the more hardliners hate him now. They're like, he's misguiding people, and, you know?
I really, really do think that that's the only way Muslims will reform.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really see Islam reforming because you're always going to have the Bid'ah gang coming out. But when it comes to reforming Muslims and the way that they behave in society, I really do think that that's how it's going to happen, and I have to commend him for that. I don't always like what he has to say, and he is still quite conservative, but it's good that he's going soft. I respect that. And he needs to put Yasir Qadi, if you're watching this, put PowerPoints in Jummah. Jummah is mad. It's so boring sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna happen anytime soon. That was years ago when I went to this class, and it still hasn't happened. So I guess it's not happening.
Well, he's doing live stream khutbas now, so he can probably do. He's
that's
live stream because of the coronavirus. He's live
yeah,
streaming them now. I
yeah.
tuned into one, I think last week. It's not bad, not bad.
I
So
wonder what's gonna happen
I
now with
rate him.
Ramadan. Ramadan's coming. Hajj might be canceled. A lot of things happening.
Oh, Hajj might be cancelled. Can you imagine an empty Makkah at Hajj?
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. And now they're actually talking about how it's not that surprising because it happened a bunch of times before, and most Muslims don't know that. But I want to end it here. I think this was a great conversation, and I think it was honestly, thank you so much for opening up and
It was a roller coaster for sure.
yeah, talking about the things that very difficult to talk about and very emotional, and bringing up old tragic memories and stuff. And I hope that you find peace for yourself. And thank you so much. And everyone who's tuning in here, do check out Angus Spread Thin on Instagram and on
I have a lot of weird handles, sorry.
yeah, no worries. And thanks again, and we'll be in touch again some other time, I guess.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm really appreciate you getting me on.
No problem. Okay, take care, Faye. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Okay, I'm